Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Pyromancer here, and welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all having a wonderful day, morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is, wherever you guys are in the world. And I hope you're all doing well. Today, we're going to be talking about the old gods, specifically a way in which we're shown the old gods and we're shown the presence of the void on this desiccated, dark world. And I'm gonna show you something that Blizzard wanted everybody to see, but only when you look closely. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the Star Augur fight from the Nighthold raid in Legion. One of, and in my opinion, the best raid of all time. On Mythic difficulty, incredible scaling of that raid, really good, gorgeous raid. But anyway, Star Augur Atreus being one of the coolest fights I think I've ever done. The multi-phases where the walls come down and he reveals the cruel frozen void that lies beyond the margin of Azeroth's skies. It's pretty cool. One of my favorite bosses for sure, for the dialogue, if nothing else. But one of the things that's shown to us in that fight is a peculiar world. A world dominated by, presumably, the old gods. And this is the phase, the final phase, where the void comes and the walls come down in this planetarium observatory type thing. And you see this massive world just completely overrun by an old god. What if I told you that's what Blizzard wanted you to see, but when you take a closer look, you see something entirely different? What am I talking about? Well, find out after today's sponsor. FlexiSpot is back at it again with another banger. Here it is, the FlexiSpot Comhar Sit Stand Height Adjustable Desk. And I gotta be honest, guys, this is probably one of the nicest desks I've ever used. I've been using FlexiSpot products for the last 5 years, 6 years, and I've never been disappointed. My main desk is FlexiSpot, so is this one. They're all electronic, motorized sit-stand desks. This one is a little unique though. Unlike my other desk, it has 2 times USBs on it and a fast-charging USB-C, which is pretty sick. In addition to that, it also has a safety lock button that prevents changes to height, which is actually kind of nice. Also unique to this one, it does have a low-profile magnetic storage drawer, so I can keep like my iPad, charging cables, random stuff like that in there. It's super sturdy, guys, and it literally took 10 minutes to put together. It comes in 3 pieces, you put it all together, and it's good to go. Honestly, the only thing that can make this desk better is more FlexiSpot desks, like you see in the background, my main desk and the other one there. So if you want to support me and my content, check them out with the link in the description below. Thanks again to FlexiSpot. So if we go ahead and pull up an image of this planet, there's a couple things that I want you to think about. First off, we are meant to believe, at first glance, that what we're looking at is of a world that has been completely overrun by the void and by the old gods, completely consumed, right? What if I told you that's not what we're looking at? In fact, what if I told you it's not an old god at all? This is something, it's an image that's been floating around recently. I saw it in Bellular's newest video. Great video, by the way. A couple of things here and there that I would change, but overall, fantastic video. Great formatting. If you guys haven't seen Bellular's new video, check it out after mine. We saw what Blizzard wanted us to see. This image has been around for a while. I've referenced it in my videos before, and this point that I'm going to make to you today is something that I've mentioned in videos in the past, more as a side note. But I think that the significance of what I'm going to show you is very important for the grand scheme of the cosmos, really. Because the story goes that the old gods are physical manifestations of the malevolence of the void, right? The void lords pooled their power and created these horrific beings and shot them out into the cosmos, which there are many holes for that plot, right? Like for the fact that the void lords couldn't actually manifest in reality, but they could create beings and assumedly rip open holes through time and space and throw these massive beings out into the cosmos, but they didn't have the energy to manifest themselves. It makes no fucking sense if you ask me. But the more that we get into today's video, the more you'll start to see why I think it doesn't make sense. But anyway, these old gods are sent out blindly. Ironically enough, the old gods mentioning vision and foresight often, blindly into the cosmos to try to find a slumbering nascent world soul. The same way that the Titans were, going around blindly ordering worlds and hoping that they could find Titan souls within them, using their techniques and machinery to bring world souls to grow and eventually wake up. And those who did wake up joined the Titans. Those who woke up. But I digress. Back to the old gods, they're sent out, and in the cosmology map, you can see that there are these void hand entities throwing these balls at, potentially this world is kind of how it's depicted. And so this is meant to depict the old gods. But I would throw something out there. The old gods seem kind of almost antithetical to the void. And I know that sounds weird, but the old gods are flesh. Chronicle even refers to them as organic. Weird. They give birth to living races. Insects give flesh to stone. It's kind of the opposite of what the void would do, where the void strips away your flesh, consumes your soul, removes that which binds you to mortal tethers. It's weird, because the void will consume everything. It doesn't matter if it's made of flesh or stone. The void can consume, and inevitably will consume, through entropy, everything. So they send out these old gods to corrupt a sleeping titan, which would give rise to an unspeakably dark and horrific creature with the power to bring about the end of everything. And they would use this being and its power to exert their influence over reality until every mote of existence fell under the Void Lord's power. That's the story anyway. So what happens then when the void consumes everything? Everything is void, and the Void Lords have gotten nowhere. Because they're trapped, we assume, in a realm known as the void outside of the boundaries of reality. So if all reality were to be consumed by the void, everything would then become void, and their plan and plot would be moot. But they're envious, remember. See, that's what Chronicle tells you. The old gods are sent out by these Void Lords because the Void Lords were envious, of course, of the magnificent, regal, noble titans. The way that Chronicle would like you to see it, of course. But we're getting off track. Back to the world. This world, covered in this old god, is not an old god at all. In fact, it's very far from it. Well, for now, anyway. Maybe it was, once upon a time, far from it, but I'd like you to consider something. When you look at this world, what do you see? At first glance, and in the heat of a fight, of course, Blizzard would want you to see an old god. It's a tree. It's a plant of some sort. How do I know that? How could I possibly know that? Well, when you look at it, it becomes very clear. It has a bark-like texture to it, rough, not smooth, definitely not flesh-like, from what I can tell. And the biggest thing that gives it away is the fact that the tentacles split. You ever seen that with the old gods before? Ever one time? Where you had a tentacle that split in two and came off into two other tentacles? Maybe three? No, the reason why you haven't seen that is because the old gods don't do that. Not at least as far as we've witnessed. These are roots of a massive, massive living organism in front of you. But we're told it's the void. The cruel, frozen void. If you're familiar with the rainforest, there's an interesting thing that plants do. Because the canopies of the Amazon rainforest in places are so dense, with taller vegetation and plant life, trees and the like, plants have to grow up. And the reason for that is because they need light, of course. They can't survive without photosynthesis. They need rain as well. And the higher that they get, the easier those things are to obtain. So while there is a dense, massive, flourishing ecosystem on the floor of the forest, many plants have to grow up. And if you go and watch a documentary, literally any, about the rainforest, it's probably something that they will highlight that exists in the rainforests on our planet. Plants will start to grow up and reach for the light. Now, I don't think that plants are different in World of Warcraft. For instance, you can go over to the Everbloom dungeon in Warlords of Draenor and find glowing motes of light on pedestals that I would assume were put there by Titans or Titan Keepers when Agrimar made his presence known on Draenor for the first time, most likely accompanied also by ANR the Lifebinder, if we're being frank. I think it's pretty obvious that she had something to do with it. There's these motes of light, and I would assume that those were there to bolster the growth of the Evergrowth. I'd guess, or they were there for other reasons. I suppose someone else could have put them there. I guess it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Light strengthens and promotes the growth of plant life and foliage, living things of that nature, no pun intended. And in the forests, like a flower that I have just in the next room over, reaching for the light, you can see some of these roots reaching out on this world as well. And if you really think about it, there's these trees where they come down into the ground, but their roots are so thick. They're a weird kind of tree where their roots kind of spread out atop the ground and then subtly sink into the ground and spread out over a very wide area. And they really get embedded down there in the ground. But of course, they have light from the sun, all of these things. But I just think visually, they look very similar. And when it comes to any tree, really, a tree can be a mere 1 foot in diameter. Doesn't take up a lot of space on the ground. But if you were to take, I don't know, a giant tractor and rip it out of the ground, you'll find something interesting happens. You don't just pull out a column of dirt. The root system is spread all over the place and it rips the earth up, does it not? Starting to sound familiar? Yes, Raj. How about all the old gods? Is that not exactly what they do? Sent out, crash into worlds, their tendrils slither down into them. See, but on this planet, they're reaching up. Here's why, I think. Because they're trying to find light. The roots of this plant that has completely consumed this world is probably starved of light, maybe devoid of it, or maybe it has consumed all of the light that was available to it, and now the light inside has begun to fade. And as we know from Chronicle, when the light expanded out upon the cosmos, where it dimmed and faded and the powers of the light were no longer as present, there a new power came to be, known as the void. And so if something like a gigantic plant, for instance, decided to consume a fuckload of light, and then it ran out of things to eat, and it was the one single dominant force on the world, I wonder what would happen if the light faded. I wonder what horrific creature would come of that. Something to think about. But I think that the old gods, if they're in any capacity related to this, clearly this plant life that exists on this world, they reached down, deep, deep, deep down. And they found something very powerful that I think is capable of sustaining them. Probably the reason for which N'Zoth has fire in his head, frankly. And I think that is most likely because Azeroth is a giant conduit of light. I think that would make sense, right? I mean, that's a different discussion, but I think that if we were to associate something with Azeroth, I would say creation, which I heavily associate with light. Not necessarily the same holy light that we see in the game, but the light, light of creation, maybe even flame to an extent, which is an important note for Sargeras. But I think they found something deep, deep, deep down there that was able to sustain them. They need not reach to the sky in search of any light because, one, they have not consumed the world entirely, of course, but two, they already found something that was enough to keep them alive. And trust me, I do think they are living things that certainly can be killed. And I think the whole we can't kill an old god thing is stupid. You may as well say we can't kill a demon because it goes back to the nether and respawns. A demon can't be killed. Well, if you go to the nether and kill it, it certainly can. So wherever the old gods go in death, perhaps if we follow and kill them there, perhaps they are really gone. But again, the point remains. Blizzard tried to trick you. I saw it, not initially. Frankly, when I first saw these worlds, I thought, holy fuck, that's crazy. Look at these old gods. We're fucked. And then I started to look a little harder and realize that that's not what it is. And if it is an old god, well, old gods and giant, massive, out-of-control plants have something to do with one another. I can promise you that. One other thing that's rather alarming is upon the seat of the Pantheon, which was certainly constructed before the betrayal of Sargeras, as they wouldn't have had any time to construct it after he killed them. The seat of the Pantheon is quite near and dear to several of these planets. Actually, when you go to the edge of the seat of the Pantheon and look off the edge, you'll see that there are these planets down below with the same exact imagery used to define them. But the Titans had done nothing about it. You want to know why I think that they didn't do anything about it? Because they're living things on these planets. And in Chronicle, you learn that the Titans swore an oath to do whatever they could, any time that they could, to protect life. Let me just throw an idea out there. if that were the case, then this planet was completely overrun by this living being. If, let's say, one of the Titans, I don't know, ANR, the Titan who symbolizes life, go figure, the one who did not get captured by the Legion and was not tormented and sat pretty and safely on Elunaria, while the others underwent God knows what at the hand of the Coven of Shivara and Sargeras. Maybe she's cool with it. Because it was her and Sargeras that originally had quarrel in the first place. When you go back to Chronicle, ANR was very quick to shut down what Sargeras wanted to do by purging the universe in flame to save it from the void. And it's funny, because if you've seen the new Bellular video, Bellular essentially asserts that death can be used as a way to extinguish or stop the threat of what the void is trying to do. Death as a force is a threat to the void. And this has been illustrated heavily through Illyria Windrunner. But wait a second. Wasn't Sargeras basically using Deathfire and the power of this Death Titan to scour the universe and purge it of life so that the void couldn't succeed? It's almost as though, if what Bellular's saying is right, that Sargeras and his actions may have been correct. And the more that you look at the Everbloom dungeon, which, please God, if you haven't done it, take my advice, go do the dungeon and read the dialogue and pay close attention to what's happening in that dungeon. The more you do that dungeon, the more you realize the similarities between Life Unfettered and Old Gods. They're very similar in the way that they act. And you learn from Archmage Soul meaning sun, in that dungeon, who is being mind controlled by this plant thing in the back of her head. She says, fire. Fire will burn away the contagion. And when you kill her, she says, burn my body. It's the only way to stop them. I want you to ponder this. I want you to think about this. I don't think I need to elaborate any further. I think that the point is made. This planet which you gaze upon was meant to fool you. But some of us, just going to say it, see these types of things. And so I want you to think of the implications of this. I want you to think about, what if the void really was tied to life? What if life that consumed too much light and became inwardly necrotic and corrupted from the inside, what would that do to, say, a world tree? Think about that. And let me know what you think in the comments section down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. Thank you to FlexiSpot for sponsoring today's video. Guys, if you enjoyed that ad, if you think it might be something for you, check out the link in the description below. You get 15 bucks off your purchase. Patrons, you guys are amazing. And I can't thank you enough for your continued support. I know I said this before, but I have stuff coming for you. Just be patient, I promise. It's going to be some really cool exclusive content. I'm thinking it might be me reading the Chronicle books and giving my thoughts about certain segments of it. And that'll probably be a Patreon exclusive piece of content. So thank you guys for staying subbed over there. You guys are amazing. If you guys are new here to my channel, hit the red button where it says subscribe. It's the right thing to do, really. I mean, realistically. You'll help me conquer the world with a silver YouTube play button. And I would greatly appreciate it, you guys. I have goals here on YouTube, and they're usually not about money. They're usually about getting more subs, because there are things that you unlock once you get higher up. So you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I appreciate you very much. Stay awesome, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace!